Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair watching the stars drift past the main screen of the New Horizon. The exploration ship had been traveling through empty space for 3 weeks now, searching for new worlds that humans might one day call home. Earth was getting crowded, and the government wanted to know what else was out there beyond their small corner of the galaxy. Lisa Park looked up from her navigation console and brushed a strand of black hair from her eyes. "Jake, I'm picking up something strange on the long-range sensors," she said in her calm voice. "There's a large object about 2 hours away, hiding in an asteroid field." Jake leaned forward in his chair. "What kind of object?" "It's big, maybe 3 times our size, and it's giving off energy readings I've never seen before," Lisa replied, her fingers dancing across the control panel. "The computer can't identify the power source." Carlos Rivera wiped grease from his hands with an old rag as he climbed up from the engine room. The stocky engineer always seemed to be fixing something on their ship. "Did someone say we found something interesting?" he asked with a grin. "I was getting bored down there with nothing but routine maintenance." Amy Stone spun around in her communications chair, her blonde ponytail swinging. "I'm not picking up any radio signals from whatever it is," she reported. "Either it's dead in space or using technology we don't understand." Jake stood up and walked to the main screen, studying the image of the asteroid field. Small rocks floated in space like frozen pebbles, and somewhere among them was something that didn't belong. His crew had been together for 2 years now, and he trusted their skills completely. If they said something was unusual, it was worth investigating. "Set course for the object," Jake ordered, "but keep our distance until we know what we're dealing with. Lisa, run a full sensor sweep when we get closer. Carlos, make sure our engines are ready for a quick escape if we need one." The New Horizon moved through space toward the asteroid field, its hull gleaming silver in the light of distant stars. The ship was built for exploration, not fighting, with scientific equipment instead of weapons. Jake hoped they wouldn't need weapons today. As they got closer to the mysterious object, more details appeared on their screens. The thing was definitely a ship, but unlike anything humans had ever built. Its hull was dark purple with strange curves and angles that seemed to shift when Jake looked at them too long. Bright blue lights pulsed along its sides in patterns that made no sense. "Jake," Amy said quietly, "I'm starting to pick up some kind of signal. It's not radio, but something else. The computer is trying to translate it." "What does it say?" Jake asked. Amy frowned at her screen. "It's hard to make out, but it seems to be some kind of automated message. Something about trade and merchandise." Lisa's hands moved quickly over her controls. "I'm detecting multiple life signs aboard that ship," she announced. "At least 50 different beings, maybe more. But here's the strange part. Most of them seem to be unconscious or in some kind of sleep state." Carlos scratched his beard and looked worried. "That doesn't sound good. What kind of ship carries 50 sleeping passengers?" Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. "The kind that doesn't want its passengers to be awake," he said grimly. "Amy, can you get us closer to that signal? I want to know exactly what that message says." The New Horizon drifted closer to the alien vessel, moving carefully between floating rocks. The strange ship grew larger on their screen, and Jake could see that it had many small windows along its sides. Some of them glowed with the same blue light as the hull markings. Amy worked at her station, adjusting frequencies and running the alien signal through every translation program they had. Finally, she looked up with a pale face. "Jake, I think I've got most of it translated. This is a slave ship." The bridge went silent except for the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Jake felt his hands clench into fists. Slavery had been illegal on Earth for centuries, but apparently some aliens hadn't gotten that message. The automated message is advertising the sale of what it calls premium specimens from recently conquered worlds. Amy continued, her voice shaking. "It's broadcasting the location of an auction that's supposed to happen in 3 days. Lisa turned from her station with anger in her dark eyes. "There are people being held prisoner on that ship right now," she said. "We have to do something." Carlos nodded agreement. "My grandmother used to tell me stories about the old days when humans were enslaved by other humans. I thought we were past all that." Jake stared at the alien ship on the screen, thinking hard. The New Horizon wasn't built for rescue missions, and they had no idea how many aliens might be guarding the prisoners. But he couldn't just fly away and pretend he hadn't seen anything. Take us in closer, he decided, but slowly and quietly. If they detect us, we might lose our only chance to help those people. As their ship moved through the asteroid field, Jake noticed something else on the sensors. Lisa, are those other ships out there? Lisa checked her readings and nodded grimly. 3 smaller vessels, probably escort ships. They're powered down but ready to move quickly if needed. The situation was getting more dangerous by the minute, but Jake couldn't turn back now. Somewhere on that alien ship were dozens of beings who needed help, and the New Horizon might be their only hope. Suddenly, Amy jerked in her chair as if she'd been shocked. "Jake," she whispered, "something just touched my mind. I think someone on that ship is trying to communicate with us telepathically." Jake felt the hair on his neck stand up. "What did they say?" Amy's eyes were wide with fear and hope. "She said her name is Zara, and she's begging us to help her. She said if we don't buy her at the auction, she'll never be free." Amy Stone pressed her hands against her temples as the alien voice whispered inside her head again. The telepathic contact felt like ice water flowing through her thoughts, carrying desperate words in a language she somehow understood. "She's trying to tell me something important," Amy said to Jake, her voice strained. "Her people are called Etherians, and they have natural telepathic abilities. That's why they're so valuable as slaves." Jake moved closer to Amy's station, keeping his voice low even though they were still far from the alien ship. "Can you communicate back to her?" "I think so," Amy replied, closing her eyes and concentrating. "She can sense my thoughts when I focus on her. Her name is Zara, and she's young, maybe equivalent to a human teenager." The mental connection grew stronger, and suddenly Amy could see flashes of memory from the alien girl. Images of a beautiful world with crystal cities and floating gardens, then scenes of destruction as dark ships filled the sky. She saw Zara's people being rounded up and loaded into cargo holds like animals. "The Vorthak Consortium conquered her homeworld 6 months ago," Amy translated, tears running down her cheeks. "They specifically target telepathic species because their abilities make them perfect for controlling other slaves and serving wealthy masters." Carlos slammed his fist on the nearest console. "This is sick. How can anyone treat thinking beings like property?" Lisa was scanning the slave ship with their most powerful sensors. "I'm detecting some kind of neural implants in most of the life signs," she reported. "Small devices attached to their brain stems that seem to be keeping them unconscious." Through the telepathic link, Zara explained that the implants did more than just maintain sleep. Once activated by a new owner, they prevented slaves from disobeying orders or trying to escape. The technology was so advanced that removing the implants incorrectly would kill the victim instantly. Jake paced the small bridge, his mind racing through options. They couldn't fight a ship 3 times their size plus 3 escort vessels. They couldn't call for help because Earth was weeks away and had no military presence in this sector. But they also couldn't abandon dozens of innocent beings to a life of slavery. "Zara is trying to show me something," Amy said suddenly, her eyes still closed. "There's going to be an auction, but not here. The slave ship is heading to a place called Nexus Station in 2 days." The telepathic images showed a massive space station where representatives from dozens of alien species came to buy and sell everything from rare minerals to living beings. It was neutral territory where even enemies could trade safely, protected by powerful defense systems. "She says the Vorthak are planning to sell her entire species to different buyers across the galaxy," Amy continued. "Once they're separated, there will be no hope of ever reuniting the survivors." Jake stopped pacing and turned to his crew. These 3 people had followed him across the galaxy, trusting his judgment in dangerous situations. Now he was about to ask them to risk everything for strangers they'd never met. "I have an idea," he said slowly. "But it's crazy and dangerous, and there's a good chance we'll all end up dead or worse." Carlos grinned and cracked his knuckles. "Those are my favorite kind of plans, Captain." Lisa nodded seriously. "Tell us what you're thinking." "We can't rescue them by force," Jake explained. But maybe we can buy Zara at the auction and find a way to free her afterward. Amy opened her eyes and stared at him. Buy her? Jake, we're not slave traders. No, but we could pretend to be, Jake replied. Think about it. Humans are completely unknown in this part of the galaxy. For all they know, we could be wealthy traders from a powerful new species looking to establish business relationships. The plan was risky beyond measure, but it was their only option. Jake would pose as a representative of humanity's supposed trading empire, claiming they had valuable technology to offer in exchange for slaves. If they could convince the Vorthak that humans were worth doing business with, they might be able to purchase Zara and learn more about the slave trade network. What do we use for money? Carlos asked practically. I doubt they accept Earth credits. Jake smiled grimly. We offer them something much more valuable, human technology. Our engines, our computers, our weapon systems. We tell them we're willing to share advanced technology in exchange for slaves to serve our expanding empire. Lisa looked skeptical. What if they want to examine our technology first? Our ship is advanced by human standards, but compared to faster-than-light travel and telepathic aliens, we might not seem so impressive. That's where human creativity comes in, Jake said. We don't show them what our technology does. We show them what we claim it can do. Carlos, can you modify our engine readouts to make it look like we're using some kind of revolutionary propulsion system? The engineer's eyes lit up with understanding. I can make our fusion drive look like anything you want on the external sensors. Give me a few hours and I'll convince them we're running on compressed dark matter or something equally impossible. Amy was still receiving telepathic messages from Zara. She says the Vorthak captain is named Thulex, and he's always looking for new business opportunities. If we can convince him that humans represent a huge untapped market, he might be willing to deal with us. There's just one problem, Lisa pointed out. If we're supposedly from a powerful empire, why do we only have one small ship? Jake had already thought of that. We're advanced scouts, sent ahead to evaluate potential trading partners before our main fleet arrives. It explains why we're alone, and why we're interested in buying just a small number of slaves for evaluation purposes. The crew spent the next several hours preparing for their deception. Carlos worked on modifying their sensor signatures to make their technology seem more mysterious and advanced. Amy practiced mental communication with Zara, gathering information about Vorthak culture and trading customs. Lisa plotted courses to Nexus Station and identified potential escape routes if their plan went wrong. Jake studied everything they knew about the slave trade network, trying to understand how he could pose as someone willing to participate in something so evil. The thought of pretending to buy another sentient being made him sick, but it was the only way to save Zara and potentially gather information to help others. As the New Horizon followed the slave ship toward Nexus Station, Jake wondered if he was leading his crew into a trap. But every time he considered turning back, he remembered Amy's description of Zara's desperate mental voice pleading for help. Captain, Amy said quietly, Zara wants to know if we're really going to try to save her. She's afraid to hope, but she can sense that we're different from the other aliens she's encountered. Jake looked at the slave ship on their main screen, thinking about the terrified girl imprisoned somewhere inside its dark hull. Tell her yes, he said firmly. Tell her that humans don't abandon people who need help, no matter how dangerous it gets. Nexus Station appeared on their main screen like a giant metal flower blooming in space. The massive structure had dozens of docking arms extending from a central hub, each one large enough to hold ships 10 times the size of the New Horizon. Bright lights marked safe passage routes between the arms, and smaller vessels moved constantly like busy insects around a hive. Jake watched the activity with growing nervousness. Hundreds of different alien species were represented among the ships, from sleek vessels that looked like living creatures to massive cargo haulers built from rough metal and exposed pipes. The New Horizon looked primitive by comparison, which was exactly what Jake hoped for. Remember, he told his crew, we're advanced scouts from a species that's just discovered faster-than-light travel. We're supposed to seem a little rough around the edges but have impressive technology hidden beneath the surface. Amy was maintaining telepathic contact with Zara aboard the slave ship, which had docked at one of the larger arms. She says they've moved her and the other prisoners to holding cells inside the station, Amy reported. The auction is starting in 6 hours. Carlos had spent 2 days modifying their ship's systems to create false sensor readings. I've got our engines reading as something completely impossible, he said with satisfaction. According to my fake data, we're running on controlled quantum fluctuations with 0 fuel consumption and unlimited range. Lisa guided their ship to a docking arm reserved for smaller vessels. There are representatives here from at least 30 different species, she observed. Some of them look friendly, others look like they could eat us for breakfast. As soon as they docked, an alien official came aboard to process their arrival. The being looked like a tall, thin human, except for gray skin and large black eyes. It spoke in a mechanical voice through a translation device. Welcome to Nexus Station. State your species designation and business purpose. Jake stood as straight as possible and tried to look confident. I am Captain Jake Morrison, representing the Human Trade Consortium from the Sol system. We are here to evaluate potential business partnerships and acquire specimens for our expanding colonies. The official entered information into a handheld device. Humans are not in our database. This is your species' first visit to Nexus Station? That's correct, Jake replied smoothly. We recently developed practical faster-than-light travel and are exploring commercial opportunities in this sector. The alien studied Jake with its large eyes, then looked around at the crew. Your technology readings are unusual. Our sensors cannot identify your propulsion system. Carlos stepped forward with a confident grin. That's because we use quantum phase compression, a technology we developed independently. We'd be happy to discuss licensing agreements with qualified partners. Jake could see the official was intrigued, but still suspicious. You will be assigned temporary quarters and granted access to the auction areas. Any technology demonstrations must be approved by station security. After the official left, Jake gathered his crew in their small quarters. The room had basic furniture and a window looking out at the busy station. Through the walls they could hear dozens of different languages being spoken as aliens conducted business throughout the massive structure. Phase 1 complete, Jake said quietly, knowing their room was probably being monitored. Now we need to make contact with this Thulex character and convince him we're worth doing business with. Amy had been receiving regular updates from Zara through their telepathic link. She says Thulex is in the main auction hall, setting up displays of his merchandise. He's bragging to other traders about the quality of his Etherian slaves. The auction hall was enormous, with curved walls rising up to a domed ceiling decorated with lights that looked like stars. Hundreds of aliens filled the space, some sitting in raised viewing areas while others moved between display cages scattered across the floor. Jake felt sick when he saw the cages. Each one held a different sentient being, some looking almost human while others were completely alien. All of them had the same look of hopeless despair in their eyes. Metal collars around their necks probably contained the neural control implants Zara had described. Thulex was easy to identify among the crowd. The Vorthak captain was nearly 8 feet tall with dark purple skin and 4 arms, each ending in hands with too many fingers. His voice carried clearly across the hall as he gestured toward a group of Etherians in a large cage. Observe the perfect neural compatibility, Thulex was saying to a group of potential buyers. These telepathic abilities can be used to control entire workforces or provide unparalleled personal service to discerning owners. Jake approached the group with his crew, trying to look casually interested rather than disgusted. Excuse me, he said to Thulex. I represent a new trading partner, and I'm curious about your products. Thulex turned his attention to the humans, his large yellow eyes studying them with obvious interest. I have not seen your species before. What system do you represent? The Sol system, Jake replied. We call ourselves humans, and we're new to interstellar commerce. Our government sent us to evaluate potential trading opportunities. The Vorthak captain moved closer, looking down at Jake from his impressive height. What does your species offer in trade? Raw materials? Manufactured goods? Or perhaps you are interested in becoming suppliers rather than customers? Jake forced himself to smile. We have advanced technology that we believe would interest established traders like yourself. In exchange, we're looking to acquire workers for our expanding colonial territories. Thulex gestured toward the Etherean cage with obvious pride. These specimens would be perfect for your needs. Telepathic control capabilities, high intelligence, and complete loyalty once properly programmed. I have 12 available, including one young female with particularly strong abilities. Jake could see Zara in the cage, a small figure with pale blue skin and large silver eyes. She looked directly at him, and for a moment he felt her voice in his mind through Amy's telepathic connection. Don't let them separate us, Zara whispered mentally. My people are all I have left. Your merchandise is impressive, Jake told Thulex, but before we commit to any purchases, you'd need to see what we can offer in return. Perhaps we could arrange a private demonstration? Thulex's eyes lit up with greed. What type of technology are you prepared to share? Carlos stepped forward right on cue. Propulsion systems with unlimited range and zero fuel requirements. Weapons that can destroy entire fleets. Manufacturing techniques that can produce any material from basic elements. The Vorthak captain stared at the humans with new respect and obvious skepticism. Such claims require proof. Many species have promised revolutionary technology in exchange for my goods. Jake nodded as if he had expected this response. Of course. We propose a demonstration of our capabilities in exchange for the opportunity to purchase some of your premium specimens. If our technology meets your expectations, we can discuss larger trading agreements. Thulex considered the offer while other aliens in the hall watched with interest. Jake could see that word was spreading quickly about the mysterious new species, making bold claims about their technology. Very well, Thulex decided. There is a combat trial scheduled for tomorrow where prospective partners demonstrate their military capabilities. If your species can prove its worth in battle, I will consider favorable trading terms. Jake felt his stomach drop. Combat trial? A simple test, Thulex explained with a predatory smile. Various factions fight controlled battles to demonstrate the effectiveness of their technology and tactics. The winners earn respect and better trading positions. Carlos whispered to Jake, this could work in our favor. If we can impress them in a fight, they'll be more likely to trust us. Jake looked back at Zara in her cage, seeing hope and fear in her silver eyes. He had committed his crew to a path that could get them all killed, but turning back now would doom dozens of innocent beings to lives of slavery. We accept your challenge, Jake told Thulex firmly. Prepare to be amazed by human ingenuity. The combat arena floated in space like a massive transparent bubble, its walls made from some kind of energy field that could contain explosions while allowing spectators to watch safely from viewing platforms. Jake stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching 3 enemy ships take positions on the opposite side of the arena. This is insane, Lisa muttered as she checked their modified weapon systems. We're about to fight 3 military vessels with a ship designed for peaceful exploration. Carlos was making final adjustments to their improvised weapons. Actually, this might work better than you think, he said with surprising confidence. Those aliens are expecting us to fight like every other species they've seen before. They have no idea what humans are capable of when we get creative. Through Amy's telepathic link with Zara, they had learned crucial information about their opponents. The first ship belonged to a species called the Chronic Empire, known for their heavy armor and straightforward attack patterns. The second was a Zalarian vessel that relied on speed and precision strikes. The third was another Vorthak ship, probably sent by Thulex to test human capabilities firsthand. Remember, Jake said to his crew, we're not trying to destroy these ships. We just need to prove that human technology is impressive enough to be worth trading for. Disable them if possible, but don't take unnecessary risks. Amy was receiving a steady stream of telepathic information from Zara, who had been moved to a viewing area where she could observe the battle. She says the Chronic ship always attacks head-on, counting on their heavy shields to absorb damage while they close to firing range. Jake smiled grimly. Then let's give them something they're not expecting. Carlos, are those mining charges ready? Modified and armed, Carlos confirmed. I've turned our geological survey charges into proximity mines. They won't cause serious damage, but they'll definitely get their attention. The arena's control system announced the beginning of the combat trial, and immediately the 3 enemy ships began moving toward the new horizon in a coordinated attack formation. Jake could see hundreds of aliens watching from the viewing platforms, including Thulex and his potential customers. "Lisa, take us straight at the Chronic ship," Jake ordered. "Make them think we're going to ram them." The new horizon accelerated, directly toward the heavily armored vessel, which responded exactly as expected by strengthening its forward shields and preparing to absorb the impact. At the last second, Lisa pulled the ship into a sharp turn that brought them alongside the enemy vessel. "Now, Carlos!" Jake shouted. Carlos released a dozen modified mining charges that attached themselves to the Chronic ship's hull with magnetic clamps. The aliens inside probably thought they were some kind of advanced weapon, but Jake had a different plan in mind. "Amy, can you get Zara to pass a message to the Chronic ship?" Jake asked. Amy closed her eyes and concentrated. She can reach the telepathic species in the viewing area, and some of them can communicate with the Chronic crew. "Tell them that those charges will explode in 60 seconds unless they withdraw from the battle," Jake said. "Make it sound like we're giving them a chance to surrender because we're impressed by their courage." The message was relayed through multiple telepathic contacts, and within 30 seconds the Chronic ship was moving rapidly away from the arena. The charges never exploded because they were just survey equipment, but the Chronic didn't know that. "One down," Lisa said with satisfaction. "The Zalarian ship is coming around for a high-speed attack run." Jake studied the approaching vessel, which was built for speed and maneuverability. "They're going to try to hit us with precision strikes, while moving too fast for us to target them effectively." Carlos had prepared for this possibility. "I've been working on something special for fast-moving targets," he said, activating a new system he had built using spare parts from their scientific equipment. Instead of trying to shoot the Zalarian ship, Carlos released a cloud of metallic particles that spread out in front of the new horizon, like a glittering net. When the enemy vessel flew through the cloud at high speed, the particles stuck to its hull and interfered with its sensors. "They're flying blind," Lisa reported with excitement. "Their targeting systems can't lock onto us through that interference." The Zalarian ship tried several more attack runs, but each time they flew through more of Carlos's particle clouds until their sensors were completely useless. Finally, they withdrew rather than risk a collision in their confused state. "Two down," Amy said, then frowned with concentration. "Zara says the watching aliens are very impressed. They've never seen tactics like ours before." The final opponent was the Vorthak vessel, which had been observing the previous battles and adjusting its strategy accordingly. Instead of attacking directly, it began circling the new horizon at long range, firing careful shots to test their defenses. "They're being cautious," Jake observed. "Thulex wants to see what other surprises we have before committing to a full attack." "Then let's show them something really special," Carlos said with a grin. "I've been saving the best for last." Carlos had spent hours modifying their communications array to create what he called a feedback pulse. When the Vorthak ship fired its weapons, he tracked the targeting beam back to its source and sent a powerful signal directly into their communication system. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Vorthak ship's lights flickered, its weapons stopped firing, and it began spinning slowly as if its navigation system had failed. The aliens aboard were probably confused and possibly experiencing painful feedback through their neural interfaces. "That should keep them busy for a while," Carlos said with satisfaction. "I temporarily overloaded their computer systems with incompatible data. They'll need at least an hour to reset everything." Jake looked around at his crew with pride. They had defeated 3 military vessels using nothing but creativity, misdirection, and modified scientific equipment. More importantly, they had done it without seriously harming anyone. "Amy, what's the reaction from the viewing area?" Jake asked. Amy's eyes were wide with amazement. "Zara says the entire station is talking about us. No one has ever seen combat tactics like ours. The aliens don't understand how we won without using conventional weapons." The arena's control system announced the end of the combat trial, declaring the humans victorious by elimination of all opponents. As the new horizon returned to its docking bay, Jake could see crowds of aliens gathering to get a closer look at the mysterious new species. Thulex was waiting for them at the docking port, accompanied by several other alien traders. The tall, Vorthak's expression was a mixture of respect and greed. "Impressive," Thulex said as Jake stepped off the ship. "Your species fights unlike any I have encountered before. Such creativity suggests your other technologies may indeed be as advanced as you claim." Jake tried to look modest while hiding his relief that their deception had worked. "We find that unconventional approaches often succeed where traditional methods fail. Our scientists and engineers are trained to think beyond normal limitations. I am prepared to discuss favorable trading terms," Thulex continued. "However, there is still the matter of determining fair exchange rates. How do you propose to demonstrate the value of your technology without revealing its secrets to potential competitors?" Jake had been dreading this question because he knew their deception could only go so far. "We prefer to establish trust through smaller transactions first," he said carefully. "Perhaps we could purchase a few of your premium specimens as a gesture of good faith, with the understanding that larger technology transfers would follow once our governments approve full trading relationships." Thulex considered this proposal, while the other alien traders watched with obvious interest. Jake could see them calculating the potential profits from establishing early relationships with this powerful new species. "Very well," Thulex decided.
"I will offer you favorable terms on select merchandise. Which specimens interest you most?" Jake looked toward the holding area where Zara and the other Etherians were kept. "The telepathic species you showed us earlier would be ideal for our
initial needs. Their abilities could help us establish communication with other species we encounter." "An excellent choice," Thulex agreed. "However, such premium specimens require appropriate payment. What specific technology are you prepared to offer in exchange?" Jake felt sweat beading on his forehead as he realized they had reached the moment of truth. Everything depended on convincing Thulex that humans had something valuable enough to trade for the lives of innocent beings. Jake reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device that Carlos had prepared for this moment. It looked impressive with blinking lights and strange markings, but it was actually just a modified tablet computer running a fake technical display. "This contains the specifications for our quantum phase compression technology," Jake said, handing the device to Thulex. "However, it's encrypted with safeguards that prevent unauthorized copying. Consider it a sample of what we can offer to trusted partners." Thulex examined the device with his 4 hands, turning it over to study the construction. "Fascinating design principles," he murmured. "My technical specialists will need time to evaluate this properly." "Of course," Jake agreed. "In the meantime, we'd like to finalize the purchase of the Etherian specimens. Our colonial administration is eager to begin integration studies." The negotiation took another hour, during which Jake found himself agreeing to terms that made him feel sick. He was purchasing 12 sentient beings as if they were cargo, even though his only intention was to free them as soon as possible. The price Thulex demanded included not only the fake technology sample, but also detailed information about human space travel capabilities and the location of Earth. Jake provided carefully crafted lies about humanity's military strength and territorial expansion, making Earth sound like the capital of a growing interstellar empire rather than a single world just beginning to explore space. If Thulex ever tried to verify the information, it would take months to discover the deception. As the transaction was completed, Jake watched Vorthak guards bring Zara and the other Etherians from their holding cells. The young alien girl looked directly at him with her large silver eyes, and through Amy's telepathic connection, he could sense her desperate hope mixed with confusion about his intentions. "The specimens are equipped with standard neural control implants," Thulex explained as he handed Jake a small remote device. "This controller allows you to adjust their behavioral parameters and ensure complete obedience. The implants also prevent suicide attempts and escape efforts." Jake took the controller with hands that he hoped weren't shaking visibly. "How do we remove the implants if we want to upgrade them with our own technology?" "Removal requires specialized equipment and considerable expertise," Thulex replied. "Incorrect procedures will result in immediate death of the specimen. I can provide technical manuals for an additional fee. That won't be necessary, Jake said quickly. Our scientists prefer to develop their own methods. The transfer was completed within an hour, with the 12 Etherians moved to specially prepared quarters aboard the New Horizon. Jake made sure his crew treated them with obvious care and respect, which seemed to surprise the Vorthak observers who were used to seeing slaves handled roughly. As soon as the New Horizon was safely away from Nexus Station, Jake gathered his crew in the ship's small conference room. Through the windows, they could see empty space stretching away from the massive trading station. First things first, Jake said grimly. We need to figure out how to remove those neural implants safely. Carlos had been studying technical readouts during the journey. The good news is that the implants aren't as sophisticated as Thulex claimed, he reported. They're basically just neural inhibitors with some basic programming. The bad news is that they're designed to release toxins if tampered with improperly. Amy was maintaining constant telepathic contact with Zara, who was sharing everything she knew about the implant technology. Zara says her people have been studying the implants since they were first captured. Some Etherian scientists managed to hide technical information in their telepathic memories before being enslaved. Can we access that information? Jake asked. She's trying to share it with me now, Amy replied, closing her eyes in concentration. It's complicated because the knowledge was stored in multiple minds, and I can only communicate with one person at a time. Over the next several hours, Amy worked with Zara to piece together the hidden technical information. The Etherian scientists had discovered that the implants could be safely disabled using a specific electromagnetic frequency, but the process required precise timing and careful monitoring. Carlos set up the necessary equipment in the ship's medical bay using their sensor array to generate the required frequency pattern. This is going to be tricky, he warned. If we get the timing wrong by even a few milliseconds, the toxin release could kill them. Jake looked through the medical bay window at Zara, who had volunteered to be the first test subject. She was lying on the examination table with monitoring equipment attached to her head, looking scared but determined. She knows the risks, Amy translated. She says she'd rather die free than live as a slave. The procedure took 3 tense hours, with Carlos making tiny adjustments to the electromagnetic pulse, while Amy relayed telepathic feedback from Zara about what she was experiencing. Finally, there was a small flash of light from the implant, followed by silence. Zara? Amy called out. Can you hear me? The young Etherian sat up slowly on the examination table, then smiled for the first time since Jake had met her. I can hear you, she said aloud, in accented but clear English. And I can think my own thoughts again. Jake felt relief wash over him as he realized their desperate plan had actually worked. How do you feel? Free, Zara replied simply. For the first time in months, I feel free. The process was repeated for each of the other Etherians, with Zara using her restored telepathic abilities to help coordinate the procedures. As each implant was safely removed, Jake saw hope returning to faces that had been empty of emotion for too long. With all 12 Etherians freed from their neural implants, Jake faced a new problem. Earth was weeks away, and these people needed immediate medical attention and psychological support after months of slavery. More importantly, they had no desire to go to Earth when their own people were still scattered across the galaxy in other slave markets. Captain Jake, Zara said during a meeting in the conference room, my people are grateful for what you have done, but we cannot simply hide while others suffer as we did. Jake nodded, having expected this conversation. What do you want to do? We want to fight back, Zara replied firmly. Use our knowledge of the slave trade network to free others and destroy the Vorthak Consortium. We know the locations of other slave ships and auction sites. Carlos leaned forward with interest. That would be dangerous. We're just one small ship against an entire criminal empire. But we've already proven that human tactics can defeat superior technology, Lisa pointed out. If we could find other species willing to help, we might have a chance. Amy was receiving telepathic updates from Zara and the other Etherians. They're saying there are resistance movements among several enslaved species, but they've never been able to coordinate their efforts effectively. Jake studied the star charts on the conference room screen, thinking about the implications of what they were considering. If we do this, there's no going back. Earth's government will probably disavow our actions and we'll be fugitives from both human and alien law. Some things are more important than following orders, Jake decided. If we can help free thousands of innocent beings from slavery, that's worth the risk. Over the following days, the New Horizon became the mobile headquarters for what Zara called the Liberation Fleet. Using Etherian telepathic networks that the Vorthak had never detected, they made contact with resistance cells throughout the sector. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Dozens of species that had suffered under the Vorthak slave trade were eager to join a coordinated rebellion, especially one led by the mysterious humans who had proven their effectiveness in combat. Within a month, Jake found himself commanding a fleet of captured and converted vessels, each one filled with former slaves who had chosen to fight rather than simply escape. The Liberation Fleet struck quickly and efficiently, using human tactical creativity combined with the diverse abilities of multiple alien species. The war against the Vorthak Consortium lasted 6 months and ended with the complete destruction of their slave trade network. Nexus Station was liberated and converted into a refugee center for freed slaves. Thulex and other slave traders were captured and handed over to species they had wronged for justice. Jake stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, now flagship of the Free Worlds Coalition, watching as former slaves returned to their home worlds, or established new colonies for species whose planets had been destroyed. Zara stood beside him, no longer a frightened prisoner but a confident leader helping to coordinate rehabilitation efforts across dozens of worlds. "Do you ever regret what we did?" Zara asked him. "Your people on Earth probably think you're criminals. Now." Jake smiled as he watched a transport ship full of rescued children departing for their home world. Earth will understand eventually. Sometimes doing the right thing means breaking the rules. Through the windows of the bridge, Jake could see construction ships building the first embassy of free worlds, where representatives from liberated species would work together to prevent slavery from ever returning to their sector of the galaxy. Humanity had found its place among the stars not as conquerors or traitors, but as liberators who refused to accept that anyone should live in chains.